Acts chapter 23. I'm just a brief little reminder that Paul he's been taken to the barracks. I don't know that he is like imprisoned, but to the barracks. Big brouhaha exploded when, before the Sanhedrin, Paul says, I'm on trial because of my belief in the resurrection, which totally divided the Pharisees from the Sadducees to the extent that the commander of the Roman forces there in Jerusalem had to rescue him for fear that he was going to be torn apart. While in the barracks, this is in verse 11, the following night the Lord stood near Paul and said, "Take courage. As you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so also you must testify in Rome." Verse 12. The next morning, some Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. These people were driven. It's not like, they and Paul had some differences of opinion. No, they were murderous. More than 40 men were involved in this plot. Okay, that's not like half a dozen guys getting together over a drink somewhere and saying, we need to rub this guy out. Verse 14, they went to the chief priests and the elders and said, we have taken a solemn oath not to eat anything until we have killed Paul. That's serious. That was the most serious oath, I think, that a Jewish man could take. I'm not going to eat. We are fasting until we have killed Paul. What was going on in their minds? Well, my sense is they thought they were standing for God and righteousness. They thought that this was their duty before God, their calling by Him. I don't know. What I do know is this was not a casual kind of commitment. This was a full-on, we will kill him. Verse 15. Now then, you and the Sanhedrin petition the commander to bring him before you on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about his case. We are ready to kill him before he gets here. In other words, they already had a plan. They weren't just out here going, we'll kill him, let's kill him. No, they thought they had a good plan. Verse 16. But when the son of Paul's sister heard of this plot, pause. The son of Paul's sister. This is really the only time we have any written connection between Paul and his family. We don't know. I don't know how to find the name of his parents, the size of his family, the makeup of it. I don't know. But we do know he had a sister who had a son. So all you genealogy people can quickly know he had a nephew. When the son of Paul's sister heard of this plot, his nephew, he went into the barracks and told Paul. Now, to me, that the nephew could get into the barracks leaves me with the impression that Paul was not like incarcerated. He was just being protected at this point. Anyway, this unnamed nephew goes into the barracks and he tells Paul. Verse 17, then Paul called one of the centurions and said, take this young man to the commander. He has something to tell him. So he took him to the commander. The centurions said, Paul the prisoner. Okay, so maybe he was a prisoner. It's pretty loose incarceration, I think. But anyway, Paul, the prisoner, sent for me and asked me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you. I kind of have a divided mind about what I think about this commander. On the one hand, I think, dude, you were going to strip Paul down and have him flogged before you got enough information to know if he deserved some kind of punishment. I don't like that. On the other hand, he did rescue Paul from pretty certain death at the hands of this angry mob. And now, I don't know how old the nephew was. My impression is he was not like a grade school kid. He was old enough that the centurion took him seriously, and now the commander takes him seriously. It would have been easy to, brush it off and go, kids, come on, I don't have time for a kid. But that's not what the commander did. In verse 19, the commander took the young man by the hand, drew him aside, and asked, "What does he want to tell me?" This was a private conversation. It's not like anybody else. The commander was not dividing his attention, and he didn't have a bunch of people standing around listening in. It was just between the commander and Paul's nephew. What does he want to tell me? Verse 20, he said, "Some Jews have agreed to ask you to bring Paul before the Sanhedrin tomorrow on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about him. Don't give in to them because more than 40 of them are waiting in ambush for him. They have taken an oath not to eat or drink until they have killed him. They are ready now, waiting for your consent to their request." Okay, a couple of things here. The nephew says there's more than 40. And he says not only are they fasting food, but they're not going to drink either. The stakes were, I don't know how they could be higher. Verse 22, the commander dismissed the young man with this warning. "Don't tell anyone that you've reported this to me." The commander, for all my misgivings about him, he was a savvy individual. He said, "This needs to stay between you and me. Don't tell anybody." Why? Because if the Jews who were plotting discovered that Paul's nephew had made this request, then they would potentially take matters into their own hands in another way. All right. Duh, you figured that out. Verse 23. Then he called 2 of his centurions and ordered them. Now back up and remember, a centurion was over 100 men. So he brought the officers of 200 men together. Get ready a detachment of 200 soldiers. What that means is your 2 divisions. 70 horsemen and 200 spearmen. That's pretty serious. No. That is very serious. Now, let's think it through, though. Because one of the things that you gather from this is that there was a sizable detachment of the Roman legion in Jerusalem. Right, you got 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, 200 spearmen. That's 470 individuals, which amounts to, in that day, a small army. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, here's another thing. I think it's safe to say that none of these soldiers, horsemen or spearmen, none of the centurions were Jerusalemites. They'd all been transplanted to Jerusalem as part of their commission, and they'd been deployed there to an area that was an undesirable posting. And frankly, they didn't have much to do. So, it's not the only, it's not, and it's not even the biggest reason why the commander deployed this group of 470 of his under his command. But it's something to think about a little bit, because you're bored stiff. There's nothing to do here. I don't like the food. The way that people act and live is weird. They don't have any sense of the gods. Well, okay. Called 2 of his centurions and ordered them get ready a detachment of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at 9 tonight. Okay, set the stage. This was not like, we can do that this week sometime. No, this was ASAP, as soon as possible. And he wanted them to leave at 9 at night. In other words, this was a little bit of a clandestine operation. These were not special forces guys, but 470 soldiers and horsemen and spearmen, more than 40 Jews watching this take place would have thought, oh, brother, I'm never going to have another meal. 24. Provide horses for Paul so that he may take him safely to Governor Felix. Now, Governor Felix was in Caesarea, which is north of Jerusalem. He wrote a letter as follows. Claudius Lysias, that's the name of the commander, to His Excellency Governor Felix. Now, this is not how we write letters, but that was the standard format for a letter in Century 1 in the Roman Empire. Greetings. 27. This man was seized by the Jews, and they were about to kill him, but I came with my troops and rescued him, for I had learned that he is a Roman citizen. I wanted to know why they were accusing him, so I brought him to their Sanhedrin. I found that the accusation had to do with questions about their law, but there was no charge against him that deserved death or imprisonment. When I was informed of a plot to be carried out against the man, I sent him to you at once. I also ordered his accusers to present to you their case against him. Now, go back. If you've got your Bible handy, you need to look at it, because he kind of bends the truth here. They were about to kill him, but I came with my troops and rescued him. That's true. For I had learned that he was a Roman citizen. Oops, that's not quite it. Yeah, he'd learned, but that's not why he rescued him. He kind of just, now the bottom line is, I found that the accusations had to do with questions about their law, but there was no charge against them that deserved death or imprisonment. And then he said, okay, I was informed of a plot and I sent him to you. Why would he send him there? Well, number one, because he was only a commander. He wasn't a judge or a governor. He didn't have authority to hold court and make a decision. So he sent him to one who did, Felix. We'll pick the narrative up there next time on SoCare with Stevie Boy.